The scent of hairspray and quiet anticipation filled the small apartment, a stark contrast to the usual aroma of old books and chamomile tea. Clara smoothed the fabric of her black dress, a simple but elegant garment she'd owned for years, reserved for occasions she rarely attended. In the mirror, she saw a woman who looked tired, the lines around her eyes telling stories of long hours and sleepless nights. But tonight, there was a flicker of something else in her reflection, a nervous excitement that felt foreign and fragile. For 15 years, she had been the shadow behind the success of Catherine Vance, one of the city's most celebrated architects. Clara was her executive assistant, a title that felt too small for the sheer breadth of her role. She wasn't just an assistant, she was the gatekeeper, the scheduler, the researcher, the planner, the confidant, and the silent partner in every project that now stood gleaming in the city skyline under Catherine's name. Tonight was the annual Architectural Guild Awards, the most prestigious event in their industry. The Vance Agency was nominated for the Project of the Year for the Helios Tower, a marvel of sustainable design and aesthetic brilliance. Catherine was the face of the project, the visionary. Clara was the scaffolding that held the vision up. She had coordinated every consultant, managed the impossible deadlines, sourced the rare materials, and proofread every single word of the proposal until her eyes burned. The project was as much her baby as it was Catherine's, a truth that lived and breathed only within the four walls of their office. "Mom, you look beautiful." Clara turned to see Lily standing in the doorway, her 16-year-old daughter holding an old tarnished silver locket in her hand. Lily had her father's bright eyes, but she had Clara's quiet strength, an observant soul who saw more than she ever let on. "Thank you, sweetheart. Do you think it's okay? It's not too plain, is it?" Clara asked, a familiar wave of insecurity washing over her. Lily walked over and gently fastened the locket around her mother's neck. It was the only piece of expensive jewelry Clara owned, a gift from her own mother. "It's perfect. It makes you look real, not like those women who look like they're made of plastic." Clara smiled, her heart swelling. This was her real prize, this incredible young woman she had raised on her own. Every late night at the office, every missed school event, every sacrifice was for Lily, to give her a life of stability that Clara herself had never known. "Are you excited?" Lily asked, her fingers tracing the intricate pattern on the locket. "I'm nervous," Clara admitted, her voice barely a whisper. "Catherine is almost certain we'll win. She's been practicing her speech all week." "Her speech?" Lily tilted her head. "What about your speech?" A soft, sad smile touched Clara's lips. "Oh, honey, no one claps for the assistant. We're the ones who make sure the microphone works and the speech is printed in a large enough font. Our job is to be invisible." She said it with a practiced lightness, a phrase she had repeated to herself over the years to quiet the ache of being overlooked. It was the pact she'd made with her career. Her contribution would be felt, but never seen. Lily's expression hardened slightly, a subtle shift that Clara knew well. It was her daughter's quiet way of protesting an injustice. "That's not fair. You worked harder on that tower than anyone. I saw you. I heard all the phone calls. You were the one who found that special glass from Germany, weren't you?" "It was a team effort," Clara said, the automatic, pre-programmed response. But Lily's words were a balm to a wound she didn't even realize was still open. Yes, she had found the glass. She had spent 3 sleepless nights negotiating with the supplier after the original order was canceled, a detail Catherine had likely already forgotten. "Just have a good time tonight, Mom. And please hold your head up high." "You deserve to be there more than anyone," Lily said, giving her a fierce hug. As Clara finally left for the gala, the weight of the silver locket against her skin felt heavier, a tangible reminder of her daughter's words. For the first time in a long time, she allowed a small, dangerous seed of hope to plant itself in her heart. Maybe, just maybe, tonight would be different. The ballroom of the Grand Hotel was not just a room, it was another world. A galaxy of glittering chandeliers cast a golden glow over a sea of exquisitely dressed people, their collective confidence a palpable force in the air. The sound was a symphony of clinking champagne glasses, the murmur of powerful conversations, and the distant, elegant strains of a string quartet. Men in sharp tuxedos, their faces familiar from magazine covers, discussed mergers and city projects. Women draped in silk and diamonds moved with a practiced grace, their laughter light and brittle. The air itself seemed different here, thick with the scent of expensive perfume, ambition, and entitlement. For a moment, Clara felt a suffocating sense of vertigo, as if she were an intruder, a simple sparrow that had accidentally flown into a grand aviary of peacocks. Her simple black dress, which had felt elegant in her small apartment, now seemed woefully inadequate. She clutched her small handbag, her knuckles white, and scanned the dazzling chaos for the familiar anchor of Catherine's presence. She found her holding court near the main stage, a vision in a sapphire blue dress that clung to her frame and matched the icy fire in her eyes. Catherine was in her element, magnetic. She laughed at a joke from a city councilman, then turned with seamless poise to accept a compliment from a rival architect, all while subtly positioning herself closer to a well-known journalist. She moved through this world as if it were designed for her, every gesture polished, every word a carefully calibrated tool. When she finally spotted Clara, her smile didn't falter, but her eyes performed a quick, almost imperceptible scan. A rapid appraisal of Clara's dress, her posture, her place in this opulent ecosystem. It was a look Clara knew well. It was the look of an owner checking on her property. "Clara, there you are," Catherine said, her voice smooth as silk, beckoning her closer. She draped an arm lightly around Clara's shoulders, a gesture that looked inclusive to outsiders but felt possessive to Clara. "Everyone," she announced to the small group, "this is Clara, my executive assistant. Honestly, she is the secret to my success. An absolute lifesaver. I'd be lost without her." The words were praise, but the tone was the one a person might use for a beloved, efficient appliance. The men in the circle offered polite, fleeting smiles. Their gazes slid past Clara, their interest extinguished the moment they heard the word assistant. She was categorized, filed away, and dismissed in under 10 seconds. The conversation simply flowed around her as if she were a piece of furniture. She was invisible again. "Is the speech in your bag?" Catherine murmured, her public smile still perfectly in place as she leaned closer, her breath smelling of mint and champagne. "Yes, of course. 2 copies. Large font, just in case the teleprompter fails," Clara replied, her voice a low, steady hum of efficiency. It was a voice she had perfected over 15 years. "Wonderful," Catherine breathed, but her eyes were already darting over Clara's shoulder. "Ah, darling," she said, her voice suddenly warmer. "Could you do me a favor? I just saw the Harringtons from the Planning Commission. I'd invited them as my personal guests, but I can't remember if I had them seated at our corporate table or at the one with the deputy mayor. Could you just sort that out? Make sure they're comfortable." It was a trivial task, a problem that likely didn't even exist, but it was a masterful stroke of Catherine's particular genius. It re-established their dynamic, reminded Clara of her role as the fixer of all things small and tedious, and got her out of the way. "Of course," Clara said. As she navigated the crowded room, searching for the seating chart near the entrance, she felt a familiar, dull ache. She was the one who had spent 3 days meticulously planning the seating arrangements herself. She knew precisely where the Harringtons were supposed to be. This was not about logistics, it was about power. After confirming the Harringtons were exactly where she had originally placed them, Clara finally made her way to table 12. It was respectfully close to the stage, but not too close, a perfect metaphor for her career. A table for the support staff, junior architects, project managers, and 1 executive assistant. She sat down, the rich fabric of the tablecloth cool beneath her hands. A young architect, barely out of university, turned to her with shining eyes. "Isn't this incredible, Clara? Catherine is a true visionary. The way she came up with the Helios concept, it's just legendary." Clara managed a tight smile. "She has a unique perspective." She didn't say that the legendary Helios concept had been born from a 200-page research document on sustainable urban ecosystems that she, Clara, had spent an entire month compiling. A document that Catherine had initially dismissed as academic nonsense, before presenting its core ideas as her own stroke of genius 2 weeks later. For the next hour, Clara watched the proceedings with a detached sense of duty. She ate the meticulously crafted food without tasting it, her mind a whirlwind of memories. The 4 a.m. trips to the office to collate blueprints, the calming of a frantic junior designer who had deleted a crucial file, a weekend she had spent secretly recreating the lost data, the quiet satisfaction of solving a logistical nightmare with a German supplier that had threatened to derail the entire construction schedule, a crisis Catherine never even knew existed because Clara had absorbed the impact, solved the problem, and presented her with only the seamless result. These were the bricks and mortar of her contribution, invisible yet essential. And tonight, they felt heavier than ever, a silent monument to her unseen labor. Finally, the moment arrived. The host, a slick television personality, returned to the podium. And now, for the award you've all been waiting for. The Architectural Guild's Project of the Year. A hush fell over the ballroom, a collective holding of breath. A montage of the nominated projects flashed across the giant screens. When the images of the Helios Tower appeared, its soaring glass facade catching the digital sunlight, the green terraces she had fought for spiraling towards the sky, an involuntary gasp escaped Clara's lips. Pride, fierce and overwhelming, surged through her, momentarily eclipsing the hurt. That was her work, her life, her tower. And the winner is, the host said, tearing open the envelope with dramatic flair. The camera zoomed in on Catherine, her face a perfect portrait of nervous, telegenic humility. The Helios Tower, Vance Architecture. The ballroom erupted in applause. At table 12, the junior architects and project managers shot to their feet, cheering and patting each other on the back. Clara's hands came together in a numb, mechanical clap, the sound lost in the roar of the room. Across the sea of faces, she saw Catherine rise, placing a delicate hand over her heart in a gesture of feigned surprise. She hugged the people at her table before starting her graceful, deliberate ascent to the stage, a queen claiming her throne. She didn't look back. She didn't cast a single glance towards table 12. In her ultimate moment of triumph, her lifesaver, the secret to her success, was completely and utterly forgotten. On stage, bathed in a brilliant white spotlight, Catherine Vance was radiant. She accepted the heavy, ornate trophy, holding it aloft as if she were born to do so. The applause, a thunderous wave of adoration, crashed through the ballroom. At table 12, Clara sat perfectly still, the sound washing over her but not touching her. It was as if she were encased in glass, watching a pantomime of a life she had helped build, but could never inhabit. Catherine leaned into the microphone, her sapphire blue dress shimmering. "Oh my," she began, her voice catching with expertly feigned emotion. "I am truly speechless. To be recognized by the Guild among such incredible nominees, it is the honor of a lifetime." Each word was a perfectly polished stone, but for Clara they were pebbles skipping over the vast, deep ocean of her actual work. Catherine spoke of her vision for the Helios Tower, a vision born from Clara's research. She talked about the tireless nights she had spent, and Clara's mind instantly flashed to her own car, often the last one in the office parking lot, long after Catherine's driver had whisked her away to a dinner or a social event. "Of course," Catherine continued, placing a hand over her heart in that familiar gesture. "I could not have done this alone. I have the most amazing team in the world. Their dedication, their talent, it's the foundation upon which this dream was built." The phrase hung in the air, so generic it was utterly meaningless. It was a blanket thrown over 1,000 individual sacrifices, a single line meant to cover the late nights of the junior architects, the stress of the project managers, and the 15 years of Clara's life. Clara's numb, mechanical clapping had long since stopped. Her hands lay in her lap, no longer limp but clenched into tight, white-knuckled fists. A strange thing was happening. The dull, familiar ache of being overlooked was transforming, hardening into something sharp and new. It was anger, pure, cold, and clarifying. Lily's voice echoed in her mind, clearer than the amplified sound from the speakers. "What about your speech?" It had been a child's innocent question, but now it felt like a profound challenge. Why didn't she have a speech? Why was her story, the true story of the tower's creation, destined to remain locked away in her memory, known only to her? The pact of invisibility she had made with herself 15 years ago, the pragmatic choice of a single mother who needed a steady job, suddenly felt like a fraudulent contract. It had promised security, but the price had been her voice, her credit, her very sense of self. She looked around table 12. She saw the exhaustion behind the proud smiles of the junior staff. She saw the same flicker of resignation she knew so well in the eyes of the project manager, a good man who had also sacrificed his son's birthday to fix a problem with a subcontractor, a problem Catherine never knew about. They were all part of the amazing team. They were the foundation, and they were all invisible. Catherine was nearing the end of her speech. "This tower is a symbol of what we can achieve when we dare to reach for the sky. It is a testament to the power of a singular, unwavering vision." Singular vision. The phrase struck Clara with the force of a physical blow. The vision wasn't singular. It was a mosaic, a tapestry woven from hundreds of threads, from dozens of hands. Her hands, her threads. It wasn't a sudden explosion, but a slow tectonic shift deep within her. The quiet, accommodating assistant, the shadow who lived in the background, was receding. In her place, a woman was coming into focus, A woman who had found the German glass. A woman who had recreated the lost files. A woman who had raised an intelligent, fierce daughter who believed her mother deserved to hold her head up high. A woman who was wearing her own mother's locket. A legacy of quiet strength now demanding to be heard. She was no longer a shadow. A shadow has no weight, no voice. And in that moment, Clara felt the immense weight of every unspoken word, every unacknowledged hour. Catherine raised the award one last time. Thank you. Thank you all so very much. The final thunderous applause began to swell, but it was pierced by a new sound, a small, discordant note in the grand symphony of Catherine's success. It was the sound of a chair scraping against the polished floor. Heads at table 12 turned first, their expressions a mixture of confusion and shock. Then heads at table 11 and the table next to it. A small ripple of curiosity was starting to spread through the sea of adoration. Clara stood. She didn't stand up quickly or aggressively. She rose with a slow, deliberate grace, an unshakable, quiet solidity. She stood there, her simple black dress a stark column of truth in a room of glittering illusion. The scaffolding was finally making itself seen. The applause, which had been a solid wall of sound, began to falter. It became porous, then scattered as heads turned. The ripple of curiosity that started at table 12 spread through the room like a wave. On stage, the brilliant white spotlight still illuminated Catherine, but the focus of 1,000 pairs of eyes was shifting, drawn to the quiet, solitary figure standing in the middle of the room. Clara. Catherine's smile, for the first time that evening, became fixed and brittle. A flicker of genuine shock, no, of pure, unadulterated fury, flashed in her eyes before being instantly masked by a veneer of public concern. She still held the microphone. "Clara," she said, her voice dripping with feigned sweetness, a sound that carried across the now near-silent ballroom. "Dear, are you all right? The excitement must be a little overwhelming for you." It was a masterful, vicious dismissal. In 2 sentences, she attempted to frame Clara as emotionally unstable, a fragile subordinate succumbing to the pressure of an event she wasn't built for. She was trying to shrink Clara back down, to stuff her back into the box of the invisible assistant. But Clara did not look at Catherine. She didn't have to. She was no longer a part of Catherine's story. She was starting her own. Instead, she looked at the faces at table 12. She saw the young architect, his mouth slightly agape. She saw the project manager, and in his eyes, she saw not confusion, but a dawning, electrifying glimmer of understanding and respect. He gave a single, almost imperceptible nod. It was enough. Then, with a calm that felt as if it had been forged in the core of the earth, Clara turned. She did not rush. She did not stumble. She simply began to walk. Her path took her directly through the center of the ballroom, past the front tables where the city's most powerful people sat, their dinner party conversations frozen, their forks hovering midair. She walked with her head held high, just as Lily had told her to. Her simple black dress no longer felt inadequate. It felt like armor. The weight of her mother's locket on her chest was no longer a burden, but a source of strength, a steady, rhythmic anchor. With every step, she felt the oppressive weight of the last 15 years begin to lift. She was walking away from the stolen credit, the casual dismissals, the pact of invisibility. She was walking out of the shadow and into her own light. The murmurs that followed her were not her concern. The gaze of Catherine Vance, boring into her back from the stage, had lost all its power. You cannot be controlled by something you are no longer afraid to lose. She reached the grand ballroom doors and didn't look back. Pushing them open, she stepped into the relative quiet of the hotel lobby. The plush carpet absorbed the sound of her footsteps. The air, free from the suffocating mix of ambition and champagne, felt clean and cool. It was the first breath of the rest of her life. She didn't take a taxi. She walked the 12 blocks home, the cool night air a welcome balm on her skin. The city lights, the very skyline she had helped shape, seemed to salute her. For the first time, she wasn't just looking at Catherine's legacy, she was seeing the canvas for her own. When she opened the door to her apartment, the scent of chamomile tea and old books welcomed her home. Lily was curled up on the sofa, pretending to read, but her worried eyes immediately met Clara's. "Mom, what happened? It's early." Clara put her handbag down on the small table. She felt a profound sense of peace, a quiet joy that was more satisfying than any round of applause. "Catherine gave her speech," Clara said, her voice clear and steady. Lily watched her, her gaze searching. And I gave mine," Clara replied. A slow smile spread across Lily's face. It was a smile of pure, unconditional pride. She didn't need to ask for details. She didn't need to know what was said or done. She understood perfectly. Was it a good speech? It was very short, Clara said, a genuine smile finally breaking through, warm and radiant. And I think, for the first time, everyone heard it. She walked over to her daughter, and Lily stood up to wrap her in a fierce hug. In the warmth of that embrace, Clara knew she had won the only prize that had ever truly mattered. Later that night, as she unfastened the silver locket and placed it on her dresser, she caught her own reflection in the mirror. The tired woman from a few hours ago was gone. In her place stood a woman she was finally, truly proud to be. She was not a gatekeeper, a scheduler, or a shadow. She was an architect of her own life, and tomorrow she would begin to build. Every great achievement is built on a foundation of countless unseen efforts. If Clara's journey to find her own voice resonated with you, share this story with someone whose quiet strength and dedication deserve to be celebrated.